We'll have about 300 law enforcement officers out here on the beaches, as we have the last couple of weeks, staffing each and every one of the beach access points. Officers and deputies in the parking lots, all of the bridges and causeways leading out to the barrier islands, and then of course along Gulf Boulevard. The purpose of everybody being out here is to make sure that we are all complying with the Board of County Commissioners' order regarding social distancing, as we are still clearly within this pandemic. And the order requires that everybody stay 6 feet apart and that we have no more than groups of 10. So what that means is that it's not business as usual. The beaches are open, but they're not freely open, and that everybody can just cram in and jam in and do what people normally do on Memorial Day or the 4th of July or any other great weekend during the summer on the Pinellas beaches, and that is to come in mass and pack in. So we have capacity limits and we have density limits. And the reason for it are that we want people to stay healthy and stay safe. So the purpose of the deputies being there is to help guide compliance with those orders and making sure that people are able to stay apart and the beaches don't get so full and so thick that they can't do that. So one of the ways that we're asking the public to help us is to use the dashboard that we put up, and the dashboard where people can access under a red, yellow, and green system. And they can look at it beginning in about 20 minutes from now at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. It'll be active, and it'll be active through Monday night. And it lists every single beach access point in Pinellas County. It lists every single parking area along the Gulf beaches and all the bridges and causeways. And so if somebody's at home, they take a look at it, and if you see that you're heading to X beach access point and it's already in a red status, well then don't go there. Look for the ones that are green preferably, and it'll tell you a percentage of full, the ones that are in the yellow. And it's all being operated from the command bus, which is right behind me. When we get done here, we can open the door if you all want, and we'll let you go in and take a look and take any video you want of how that operation's working in there. But the reason why it works is because it is personnel intensive. But again, we got about 300 deputies out, and they are on the sand at these access points. They're in the parking lots and they're on the roadways. And every 30 minutes or more frequent is they're calling right into the command bus behind me, and they're giving status updates. And as they are giving those continual status updates, that information is live put onto the dashboard. So information is very rich, it's very timely, and it allows people to see exactly what's going on out here. So we're asking the public to check it over the last couple weekends, and it's been up now since we opened the beaches. The first time that we used it was over Mother's Day weekend, which was 2 weekends ago. We had, over the last 2 weekends, over 200,000 hits on the webpage. In one day alone, last Saturday, we had 28,000 hits. The first Saturday, in a couple-hour period, there were about 20. But when people get out here and these access points are closed down, what we've been able to do the last couple of weeks is to redirect them, because we want to help them. We want them to enjoy the beaches. We want them to come and have a good time and patronize the businesses and do all the things people do, so we're able to redirect them to open sand. And we're going to continue to do that this weekend. But if things get full, and there's a couple areas where I'm concerned that it's going to get full and there just won't be any more open sand, and one of those places is on Clearwater Beach. I think that Clearwater Beach is going to get full, and we're going to end up having to turn people away. Another place that is going to close is going to be Honeymoon Island State Park. When the park reaches 4,500 people through the gate, then the state has decided that that's the capacity and they shut it down. Paso Grill Beach will also be in that same situation. But everybody should know that we're going to make every single effort to redirect them to the open spaces. So we ask them to work with us and move to the open sand area. I call it the open real estate. So if we've got that open real estate, that open sand area, we'll help redirect people. But understand, the best thing they can do is come early, look at that dashboard, and if you haven't checked it and you don't come early, don't be surprised that you get turned away. So I want to just get it out there and kind of manage people's expectations, because I know, again, with the weather being beautiful out here this weekend, that we're going to have a lot of people. So this is a unprecedented effort that we have made and the law enforcement's made. I can't think of any time in my last 38 years of being around here doing this that we've had this type of a presence and this type of a sustained effort. But it's all in the name of making sure people stay healthy and that we comply with the order, and the order is intended to make sure we stay healthy. This is not about enforcement. This isn't about arresting anybody or issuing any citations. We haven't done that in the last 2 weeks, and I hope we don't even get anywhere near that point this weekend. That's not the intention. The intention is just to make sure that people stay far enough apart that they're not going to get sick, and that we can look at this a week from now or 2 weeks from now and say we had success. And that's going to be measured by a couple of really important metrics. One of those is the number of new COVID cases in Pinellas County doesn't go up. The average right now is somewhere around 15, 17 cases a day, and it's stayed static since the beaches were open, since the businesses were open, and since the restaurants were open. What we don't want to see is, because we've made changes, that the number of new cases goes up, because that means that we got a problem, and that problem could be attributable to those loosening of standards, but we haven't seen that. The other thing is a percentage of positives. Pinellas County is about between 1.5% and 2% of all the tests that are done come back positive, and that's much lower than the state standard. With these beaches being open and a lot of people being out here, if we can keep people apart and get them to practice that social distancing and not on top of each other. And remember, you got a whole lot of people that are asymptomatic. And when they're asymptomatic, according to all the information and all the medical evidence, is that that's when they are most likely to transmit the disease. So we want to make sure they stay apart, and then we can look back a week and 2 weeks and 3 weeks from now and say, this worked because we didn't see an increase in the number of cases and we didn't see an increase in the percentage of positives. So far so good with the effort, because we haven't seen that over the last couple of weeks. So we just look forward to a successful weekend out here. So I'll take any questions that you have, and then we can show you the bus in here and the command post and how that information is being loaded and how the people are doing it. So that'll be open again. The dashboard will be up from 9 o'clock in the morning, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday through about 8 o'clock p.m. It'll start at 1 o'clock today until about 8 o'clock tonight.
Sheriff, our understanding of the virus has evolved significantly since the start to where we are now. And in terms of how the virus is transmitted, what's more likely to be transmitted versus this location. At this point, it seems very unlikely that a virus transmission happens in an outdoor environment. And this seems like a lot of resources that you guys, and you even said it's unprecedented.
Right.
When do you look at that and maybe lessen the approach that you guys have?
Well, I think it's after this weekend. The order is still in place, and you're right, it's evolving. I mean, look at some of the new information, I'll call it, that came out from the CDC just in the last 48 hours. And one of the things that I think we know, and I think everybody has learned to realize during this last few months, is that the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. And it does seem to evolve, and while there are certain situations now and conditions they say that are less likely, they're not saying it's to the exclusion. And we've also seen some situations where one day, and I'm not criticizing it, I'm saying it's just because there's such uncertainty with this, and it is science and it's evolving and they're trying to figure it out, is you hear one thing one day and then it gets changed the next day, so you really don't know. But against that backdrop, is the order still in place? And as long as the order is still in place, then we need to make sure, on the beach, if people are in the water, certainly I think common sense, and I think the science will tell us that it's less likely. But remember, they're not always in the water. Sometimes they're together, and all it takes is people being too close in that group, and one person, we know, what is it? It's sneezing, it's coughing, and it's talking, and that's where the droplets come from. So it's certainly possible, even if you're outside. And sometimes people are under tents, they're under cabanas, they're in, and you got sometimes the restaurants and the bars that are out here. So I think we look at it after this weekend. This is not sustainable. It didn't say that it was. In fact, I told the Board of County Commissioners last week when we had a discussion about it that my intention is to back this off after this weekend. Let's see where it is and look at the measurements, look at the metrics. And if we don't see that uptick in the number of new cases and the number of new positives, then I think it's time to take those training wheels off and let's just let it open up and see what happens at the next stage, because it's all about stages. So
a couple of weeks ago, you had a press conference and you mentioned that actually opening up was probably safer because we were not funneling people. Are the numbers you say that's kind of back that up?
Yeah, I think so. I support that and stand by that. I think that the more that we have open and the more that people can spread out, the greater the opportunity for them to enjoy the beaches, enjoy the outside, to get back to some sense of normalcy, and have less of a chance that they're going to spread it. So as an example, in Honeymoon Island, we asked the state originally, Honeymoon Island was originally open at 3,000 people. And I asked the state, I called the Secretary of DEP and said, can you raise that limit? Because it allows people to spread out. If it's 3,000, it's not that they're not coming. Where are they going? They're going to go onto the causeway, and then they're packed in. and then we've got to shut it down because people want to get out. So if you open it up more, and they did, and we're thankful for that, they opened it up to 4,500, so that's helpful because people can spread out. So the more that's open and the more they can spread out, I think the better we all are.
Have your deputies in the last 2 weeks had to break up any large groups that wouldn't really conform to the idea of social distancing?
No, we've had a couple of incidents out here, but I would call them normal incidents at normal places where you're going to have a crowd that becomes a little disorderly. But that's the normal stuff. Is that absolute majority of people are compliant and they're trying, and that's what we want to see. And I'm very thankful for that, and very thankful for the public. The last couple weekends, I've spent the majority of my time on Clearwater Beach because it is a real populated area. It is a hot spot. It is an area of concern for us. And I can tell you, though, in talking to people and as we're having to close off certain access points, is the public is very receptive to that constructive feedback and the asks and the requests. What I see out there is that the absolute majority of people are really trying. And if somebody's not, we ask them, and they do it right away. So we have not had any problems. But again, and this is what I'm a little bit cautious about, and I just want to make sure people know, is that as we have had to close things down or redirect people along the lines of what your question is, we've been able to redirect them to an open place. So that's kind of easy because, well, it's a little bit too full here. Everybody's too packed in. You can't stay 6 feet apart. Your groups are too big, etc. But there's if you go about 2 blocks up, there's plenty of open sand. Oh, sure, no problem. But what's going to happen when you say there's just no room? And that's what people just need to understand. And this is why we're doing it, because again, we don't want to see the results in a week or 2 weeks where all of a sudden you got this big spike, and then somebody comes back and says, "Oh, whoops, we got to start closing stuff back down again." So I don't want to see that, and the public doesn't want to see that. So that's why we're making this effort. But so far, everybody's been great. The public's been really, really helpful in getting this done.
How much work do you think the beaches are going to do this weekend, considering a lot of the hotels have reopened, it's the holiday weekend? What do you think it's going to be compared to what we saw the last 2 weeks?
Well, it's going to be exponentially busier. There's no doubt about it. The vacation rentals were able to start renting earlier in the week. The hotels are up. The occupancy's up. We know that there's some hotels we've checked that are at 90, 100%. A couple of weeks ago, when we checked, some of these hotels were at 15 and 20%. So it's going to be one of those crazy beach weekends is what it's going to be. But that's okay, as long as everybody does it the right way and understands that it's just not business as usual. And we're here to help them get to the right place and get to the place that they can access so they can have a good time and so they stay healthy. So that's the main purpose why we're out here, is to help guide them into the right places. And if it gets too full and say, sorry, it's just you can't come, it's not because we don't want them on the beach. We don't want them in an unhealthy environment.
Sure, not related to the virus or beach controls, but what do you make of proposals for voting around buses?
I don't really have great familiarity with that. We didn't have a lot of discussion with the county about it.
Is voting been a problem in that area?
Well, voting is always a problem in Outback Key, Shell Key, the Bunce's Pass area, because it is always packed, as it is with the Spoil Islands. If you look at John's Pass and then you get up north and you look at Three Ripper Island and some of those areas, it is just jam-packed with boats and with people. So that is a constant, and it's going to be that way now throughout the summer. I know that there was some concern, again, because of what's filling up in the lagoons and the boats and, those kinds of things, and with swimmers. So, when that came up the other day, I didn't have any familiarity with it. That wasn't something the county really discussed with us. We're working with them and trying to work through it. I've received a number of calls over the last couple of days from people asking what the rules are. Our Marine unit's trying to work with people on it. Nothing's been posted and nothing's been marked. So, we're going to work with people on it. But I really can't get a strong Marine presence out there all weekend.
A couple questions to help me run. Cost-wise, you talked about being resources. What is this costing?
Well, luckily, a lot of the deputies that are out here have been displaced from their current assignments. So we have a lot of deputies that are school resource deputies are in the schools. The schools have been closed. The courts, as far as in-person hearings or trials, it's all shut down. So we have 86 deputies in judicial operations and court security. I mean, they're deputy sheriffs, and they're assigned there. So they're out here. So we've been able to use